Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warrant or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by SafetyFM.
And from the border of liberty and prosperity and the highway to the north, this is Safety Wars for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. Hoping your day went very well. Better weather here, a little bit warmer up north. It's been cold, very cold. Anyway. Hoping everyone's day went safe. If you're listening to me, I hope that everyone's safe. We're going to talk about last night's program because there were some questions. No, I got some feedback, and it is what it is, right? I never get feedback. I'd rather get feedback from my headphones or my audio system here than from some other people out there. Again, you have to be careful who you get feedback to and who you pay attention to. It's been my experience because not everybody, right? They're your work colleagues. They're not your friends all the time. Remember that. I never understood that until much later in life, much later than what I should have. Now, so some of the comments I got last night were along the lines of, well, you make it sound like the employee's not to blame. That's not the employee's fault. Now, to review, we have a situation, and I read an accident report, a summary statement I read from someone sent me, and it was along the lines of a confined space entry attendant left the space, right, and left people in the space. And they said, well, the person should have never done that. Okay, and my response is this. They're paying this confined space entry attendant. I know, right? We'll leave it at that. Minimum wage plus $5 is essentially it. Aren't you really expecting a hell of a lot for someone making maybe what is it, 19, 20 bucks an hour? I have to ask that. And if it's on overtime, it's time and a half, 35 an hour. And it's a project person, meaning you're going to hire them for a project. And then at the end of the project, they're going to be on the unemployment line if they qualify. Are you asking them to risk life or limb and say, hey, look, I'm going to need your access badge here before we go in and blah, blah, blah. It's along the line, the attitude of a lot of corporate cultures in that industry, in the oil industry, is along the lines of, hey, you're making 20 bucks an hour. I'm making 50 bucks an hour. It could be any number. 50 bucks an hour. I'm a full-time employee, blah, blah, blah. No, and they break out the rules for radicals. No, I'm going to make trouble for you. We're in a hurry. We got to get our job done, blah, blah, blah. And you think that you're going to have somebody say, hey, if you have one of my people or you have somebody who's been in my program, it's going to be like, hey, guy, no, come on. This is what the rules are. We're going to follow the rules. Do you really think that's going to happen? How much training do those confined space entry attendants have? Hopefully they went through the full-blown training with that when they went through everything. Are they actually know what these readings mean on the meter? Do they know why we have things? Do they know that 100 people a year die in a permit required in a space that should be a permit required confined space. They know all this stuff. Has management gone out there and supervised them, double checked, seen what they're doing, trained them in the field? No, because along the lines of, well, we want to, no, the easy route is we're going to blame the employee. Okay, and blame fixes nothing. I get that. I understand that more than anybody. But where do we get to a solution? What are you going to do? I'll tell you what happens if this person did, in fact, get fired, which I believe she did, or he did. Now, what's the message you're sending to all the other confined space entry attendants? It's not, hey, look, we have this rule in place for a reason. Do you folks not understand why we're doing this? Do you understand this? Not only is it a rule, but this is the rule. This is why the rule's in place. And everything. And we know right off the bat that rules are going to be broken, right? Because we're all familiar with the Jens Rasmussen, right? Work modes, right? Skills, rules, lack of knowledge or knowledge. We know that, and we know, all right, because if you're doing that, right, and especially if they're inexperienced, they're going to be up on that top level. They're going to be on the lack of knowledge. They don't understand. And now you're trying to move them into this and give them responsibility. And remember, I'm going to ask this. You're telling that confined space entry attendant, you're responsible for this and recording people. Do they actually have authority? There is a question for you. Do they have, because this is what happens. And it happened for the first 17 years of my career, when I wisened up. It's along the lines of, and I'm sure there's Sheldon and Jayallen and Sam Goodman and everybody who else I've spoken to on the network. Do you have the authority to hire, fire, or discipline someone? Do you have the authority as your confined space entry attendant to take people out of there and they have to listen to you? That's where it comes down to, folks. Right? And that's got to be in writing. Because I tell you what, if this person had that in writing in their employment contract, I think you might have in some states a very good case for wrongful firing. Because it would be along the lines of, I tried to get them out. I tried to do this. I tried to do that. I followed it up with my supervisor, my coworker, whoever I report to. They were ineffective. They didn't go straight in this out. They didn't do this. They don't do that. Blah, 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 blah. And here, I don't have the authority to hire, fire, or discipline any of these people. I don't have the authority to shut the job down. I don't have any of this authority. Now they fired me because this didn't happen. Guess what? I had the ability. Now it's wrongful firing. How's that? I wisened up because now in every contract I write, it states in there, I do not have the authority to hire, fire, or discipline anyone. And if you are giving me that right, I have to have it in writing. Because 17 years into this, when I finally got that authority where I had a very smart client that said, no, you have the authority to hire, fire. You hire, not so much hire, but you can fire and discipline people, no problem. Guess what? Now, you got to be very careful because you don't want to rule by fear. But guess what? Couple of folks, I'm not listening to you. You're not the foreman. You go, and here's the New Jersey salute. Well, guess what? I'm not letting you go into a permit required confined space. If you don't have training, you're not wearing the correct PPE, you're not following the JHA as written, you're not following the permit as written, and you're acting like a fool. Well, now guess what? Now guess what? We don't do it. We're not going in unless we follow this. All of a sudden, attitudes change because you have the authority to deal with things. Right, you have the authority right then and there, and if you have management that backs you up, that's great. But how often does that really happen? It happens very rarely, and there are some safety professionals out there listening to this that are mortified. You mean you actually fire people? Yeah, I had to. On some things where you didn't fire them, we suspended them, sent them home for a couple of days. And it was usually over stupid things. Now, do I, where I was, no, they basically made me part of their human resources team. But guess what? We let them back. We retrained them. We said, look, this is the way it's going to be. Management backed me up. And guess what? They went for years without an OSHA recordable. And we're not even talking about the green sign thing with, zero accidents, zero injuries, zero illnesses, blah, blah, blah. We're not even talking along those lines. They truly had no accidents, no injuries, and no illnesses for years. Why? Because it's like this. That's not your first. That's not your first thing. Is fire people. Some people it is. With some managers, that's what they do. That's why safety professionals are hated in a lot of corporate cultures. But you have to go in and you have to say, look, this is what the rule is. I didn't make the rule. This is what the rule is. This is why we have the rule. And then on the other hand, if it's a dumb rule, now be open to hearing that, well, it's a dumb rule. But this, in the case we discussed yesterday, guess what? It's a regulatory thing and it's a site policy. Now, the other thing is this. What about these IDs that they were so? Well, we have to hand you our badge. What I do, and I have right over here to my left, it's sometimes in the screen, a card printer. I print out my own IDs. If I have to hand in an ID somewhere, here's my ID. I do not hand in official IDs. It's happened already where I've seen confined space entry attendants with access code IDs hand them off to someone else, and they go out the back gate for an hour or two. They know the person's going to be in the confined space. They go to a lunchroom. They go walking all over the place. And guess what? Now it shows that the other person left the work area, went to the lunchroom, which is outside the regulated area with the card access, and they didn't do it. And, and now the other person gets not pay. That happens. And it's a security thing. All right. All these things go into that. And it's what we call context. And that report that we received yesterday, that 100-word report, and that's how it was written up in the accident report, is my understanding, does not give you context. And that's what we need to know. What actually happened? Why? Then we could figure out how to prevent an accident if we have different ways of, managing things. And again, this was a near miss because we have many other controls in place here with this, right? Hopefully we do at least. Okay, I'm rambling a little bit. Now, big story of today. What is the big story of today? And I don't have government handouts, government websites here, so I really can't share them on the air. But I wake up this morning and I'm going out to a project and I'm about, almost there. I have my hands-free setup on and everything else. I normally have two phones. So one phone, I have this thing, and then all of a sudden I had nothing, nada. I said, son of a gun, don't have any reception. Well, that happens. It's okay, let me turn on the radio. And I'm listening to, and I'm going to give a big shout out to Jersey Joe Piscopo, a 970 The Answer out of New York. I'm listening. It says, hey, there's a outage for cell phones in this area. Seems to be a nationwide outage for T-Mobile, AT&T, and everything else. And I'm sure some of your other folks are there. Now you're going to say, well, okay, Jim, so what? Again, what is safety? Safety is capacity. A lot of job sites out there run on these cell phones. Let's face it. Right? They got rid of, if you remember way back in the day, they had out the Nextel phones for the push-to-talk feature, and I think some models still have that, but Nextel was bought by Sprint, and I don't think Sprint even exists anymore. I think they were bought by T-Mobile, something like that. But the jobs are still being run by cell phones. Here we have an issue where a cell phone had an outage. The project that I was on, all of the permits have to be called in for confined space entry, excavation permits, all the work permits all have to be called in every day. we were delayed in getting to work because we didn't have cell phones to call the line to call them in. So what do? I said, well, let's go find a landline. So we went and found a landline and everything else. And I said, now this is not good enough because our emergency calls, if there's an emergency, is through a cell phone connection to a dispatcher. That's a problem. How are we going to mitigate this? So what we did was the whole work crew broke out their cell phones. Who has the signals? Whose phone is working? Whose phone is not working? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to have your phone here. What's the access code number to get on it? So in case we have to make an emergency call, how do we do it? That's how we handled it. And it wasn't that much of a delay, maybe 5 minutes. We thought of this, all right? But let's say that you're in a facility or in a work area where you don't have that ability. What do? Again, no 911 or 911 if you're in some parts of the country. You have in England, no 999. How are you going to call someone? It's an issue, and I think we got a little bit of a taste of that today. We had a little blackout. They're saying possibly solar storms, blah, 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 but and we'll talk about a little bit more on the next subject we're going to talk about. So here we have, the Daily Mail is saying this was a hack here, and there's another cyber attack today. We'll talk about that. But what's your plan? What I've always wanted to do, and I've spoken with it with a couple of people, including a local Eagles scout who works for the local radio station here. We were talking about shortwave, CB radio, right? Citizens Van. Channel number 9 still works for emergency calls. Is that one? If you have shortwave, is that how it is? If you have a site radio, I have certain recommendations, but one of the more popular ones is Motorola. Well, is that going to be your communication system? We had a situation in the refining industry where we had emergency radios. Everyone got an emergency radio. We had 3 channels. One was the emergency channel for the facility. One was a communications channel from the facility. And one channel, right, it was 15-channel radio, but we only needed 3 channels. Well, number 3 was for the people on site, the company. So we had different protocols. One of the protocols was that we had somebody at a base station in the office at all times. And if we couldn't get through on channel 1, the emergency channel, we would go to channel 3 as our backup because these are handheld radios. I believe that they were 4-watt radios, so they only they don't go very far. And guess what? That's what our whole thing was there. So we had to have a system worked out. My question is this: what's your system for your workplace? This is going to be worked out, communications, and what's your communication system for your home? I remember during Superstorm Sandy, there was no cellular service. However, there was a 3G wireless service. Remember, Superstorm Sandy 13 years ago. I was able to work off of my car. I had a 3G service in the car. So I was able to communicate through voice over internet protocol through the car internet connection. I also had a CB radio with that so I could hear around. I also had one of these, a police scanner. Now, there was a lot of controversy last year, 2023, with AM radio, right? So AM radio, we have here, I can share this. Now, again, I only share like government websites usually because I don't want to get into trouble here. Okay, so here we have the broadcasters. This is from FEMA.gov. So this is the Integrated Public Alert Warning System, right? That's FEMA's national system for local alerting that provides authenticated emergency and life-saving information to the public through mobile phones using wireless emergency alerts, to radio and television via the emergency alert system and on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's weather radio. And we're going to go over to the IPAWS fact sheet. The Integrated Public Alert and Warning System is a tool that federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial public safety agencies can use to notify the public of disasters. So what happens is this. There's an emergency alert system that goes out. It goes out to your radio, AM radio, and there are 80 different stations that it goes to in the country, AM, and it gets disseminated elsewhere, right? Then you go into wireless emergency alert system. That goes to the mobile phones and then into other things, right? So the NOAA weather radio being another one, right? Delivers weather-related non-weather emergency messages. What's the advantage? And this is the big thing with all of this AM radio and everything. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's minimal cost for alerting authorities. Again, because why? Part of my understanding is part of the FCC license is that you have to allow the government access to your transmitter. With IPAWS, alerting authorities can target specific geographic areas to ensure only those in affected areas, including visitors, receive the alert. The content and timing of alerts is at the discretion of alerting authorities. FEMA does not review, edit, or approve or disapprove alerts sent by public safety agencies. All right. And no, then you can sign up. No, I'm not going to go into this, right? With this. Now, what's the other thing now? Right, there was a national test in 2023 on October 4th, right? For that, and we all remember that our cell phones were hijacked, right? And I say that half jokingly. All right. So, the emergency alert system. All right, so that gets sent out by regular radio. Looking for things, right? And I know I'm going through here. No, I would not like that. I'm on the air. All right, so let's see here. Broadcasters and wireless providers. So the National Public Warning System, also known as the Primary Entry Point Stations, are radio broadcast stations that work with FEMA to provide emergency alert and warning information to the public before, during, and after incidents and disasters. The FEMA NPWS also serves as the primary source of initial broadcasts for a national alert. Now, this is where this gets a little bit this is where it gets a little bit controversial, because right now electric cars and many other automobiles are phasing out, and there's been they're going back and forth, and right now there's a law that's going through Congress, a bill on cars having to have AM radio. Now on electric cars, or I used to have a 1994 Chevy that had an issue with the AM radio. Whenever the car was running, I didn't have AM radio. It was all static. But electric cars, apparently the AM radio is interfered with. There isn't, I believe, a technological solution. That's a little bit of money. How did I fix my 1994 Chevy? I had to get a new radio and make it demand, but that's the story for another day. That's when I was much more hot-headed, when I was 23 years old. But essentially, that would probably do everybody well to go out, and this is FEMA.gov, and I'm not right. And you can look this up as the primary entry point radio stations. So I'm going to go down, and we're going to sort this by state and alphabetical order. Right now, I am in the People's Republic of New York and New Jersey, and the primary entry point radio in New Jersey and New York is WABC New York 77 AM. Now, if we go a little bit further here, the next one over, there's three of them, because New York is really freaking big. You have 105.7 FM. That's an FM radio station. Again, FM doesn't go that far. It's line of sight. Then you have 1180 AM and and 590 AM out of Albany. So I would go, and I have those written down. These are the emergency alert stations that we get here. Now, what I'd like to do is get a couple of people interested in shortwave. And again, shortwave radios still are out there for very eccentric people. Back in the day, everybody had to have one if you were in radio. That's not so much the case now. You could go out and get a technician's level license because and you can have a basic radio license for communication. That might be another one. We never got around to it because my father got sick, but we always talked about having this in his house and in my house so we can communicate in the event of an emergency with everyone. Sometimes truck drivers have this and everything else are shortwave radio licenses. Another way is CB radio. And again, Citizens Band, 40 stations. You can actually, there no licensing really required. Some of the other handheld radios do require licenses. You've got to check out what the legalities are on that. Now, for the site radios like Motorola, RCA, Kenwood, those are the big name brands. Those have to be programmed, and you need an FCC license for those signals on there. And again, what's the whole point of this? You're building capacity, number one. You're building capacity, which is building safety, and you got to plan this stuff out ahead of time. You have to plan it out left of the bang. All right? And I tell you what, it's going to be a bad idea if we are actually going and going to get rid of AM radio. My opinion, one man's opinion. Now, let's talk a little bit more about disasters here in a moment. I'm going to go to commercial break and take a break.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Poesl with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Poesl with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
This is Safety Wars, broadcasting to our brothers and sisters in the occupied territory of behavior-based safety. Get out your secret decoder ring. Here is your nightly message.
Context drives behavior. Context drives behavior.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
safetyfm.com.
All right, we are back. Now, this is another thing here. Change Healthcare. Pharmacies nationwide report outages. This is from the express.com, the-express.com. Article by Carl Holbrook. Change Healthcare reported the issues due to a cyber attack, which is causing havoc for patients attempting to fill prescriptions. Pharmacies all over the country are experiencing delays in prescription orders due to a cyber attack on one of the biggest healthcare technology companies in the nation. Change Healthcare. Hey, I've been up since 4:30 this morning. Change Healthcare first noticed the cybersecurity issue affecting its networks on Wednesday morning on the East Coast. So here's another question. Here, My question is this: if you are on prescription medication, which most people are, what are you going to do with this? What do you do? I know one thing, one organization that I'm aware of in 2020 during the riots, where we had people burning down pharmacies and communities, and medication was not there. One charity I know of went out and the people in that region that work for that charity, the paid workers, they went out and they got they were hand delivering medications to people. Oh yeah, that's how they responded. I'm not at liberty to say what charity that was, but it is true, and I know it to be 100% true. How about a mass situation in the long term where these pharmacies are down? How are you going to get information on your pharmacy, what prescriptions you need, insurance information, and everything? A couple of different ways you could do that, right? And I advocated, I know when I was managing the medications for my parents, what I had was a copy of all the prescriptions. I also had a copy of all of the medications, prescriptions, medical information. I would also add end of life directive, power of attorney in case they're incapacitated, all that stuff. Again, planning ahead of time. Is it possible, rather than get 1 month's worth of medication, to get 3 months worth of medication? Then that mitigates you being in a jam there. The other thing is, if your medication, like let's say you're on insulin or Ozempic or Wegovy or a Mounjaro or other injectables, what happens? They have to be in in a refrigerated, controlled environment. Now, there is a little bit of leeway there, but you got to check the inserts that nobody wants to read on the medication. I'm like the only guy that reads them, probably. So, again, what are you going to do if you do not have access to your medication? You got to retain the information, medical information, everywhere in one place. I mean, you can look back during disaster preparation month in September. We had some programs on that. Again, preparation ahead of time. Now, we're going to mosey on over one of these stories here. It's off of Study Finds, and I found that pretty intriguing here with this here. Oh, all right. This is from studyfinds.org. Common baldness drug may also save users from heart disease. And this is from Alexander Olmuiz. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, but it's on Study Finds. Now, what basically what this story says is, have you ever thought of a medication for hair loss might secretly be guarding your heart? It sounds like a plot twist in a medical drama, but researchers from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign suggest this could be a reality. The drug in the spotlight is finasteride, which that's the generic name, which millions of men use for male pattern baldness and enlarged prostate. However, the new study reveals a potential bonus and may also lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. All right, now I'm heading on over to the Mayo Clinic, and let's see how this works. Basically, it lowers dihydrotestosterone levels. When I hear that, lowers testosterone levels. Okay, I understand that causes male pattern baldness. But what are some of the well, first of all, as a treatment for baldness, why would a man not want to go bald? And it's for, okay, we're gonna put it out there. If you're bald, right, and look at me, right, I'm bald, or almost bald. Right, when I was asking my wife, and no, I just basically pretty much shave it once a month. When I was dating my wife, I said, look, I'm going bald. Are you okay with that? Not that it doesn't bother me, but some women like likable woman. She said, wait until you meet my brother and my father. I said, okay, so I guess you don't have an issue with it. No, I don't have an issue with it. But a lot of women do have an issue with it, and men want to attract women, and they get uptight over it and not confident. And okay, so I get it. They want to take anti-balding things. So let's see some of the things, right? So you got the chills on the medication, potentially cold sweats, confusion, dizziness, faintness, lightheadedness when you're getting up, suddenly from a lying or sitting position. Let's see some of the other less common side effects. Those are the common ones. All right. Bloating or swelling of the face, arms, hands, lower legs, or feet, breast enlargement and tenderness, hives, welts, itching skin, skin rash, rapid weight gain, redness of the skin, swelling of the lips and face, tingling of the hands or feet, unusual weight gain or loss, incidents not known, clear or bloody discharge from the nipples, dimpling of the breast skin, inverted nipple, lump on the breast or underarm, persistent crusting or scaling of the nipple, redness or swelling of the breast, sore on the skin of the breast that does not heal. Some side effects may occur that usually do not need medical attention. These side effects may go away during treatment as your body adjusts to the medicine. Also, your healthcare professional may be able to tell you about ways to prevent or reduce some of these side effects. Check with them. With your healthcare professional, if any of the following side effects continue or are bothersome, or if you have any questions about them. So here are some things. Now, again, you want to attract a mate, right? And I'm going to say a little bit of off-color things. So if there's some kids in the house, you may want to turn down the volume on this. And I'm warning you, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, more common side effects. Decreased interest in sexual intercourse, the inability to have or keep an erection, loss in sexual ability, desire, drive, or performance. All right, less common, runny or stuffy nose, sleepiness or unusual drowsiness, sneezing, back pain, decreased amount of semen, diarrhea, dizziness, headache, stomach pain, and possible testicular pain. Now, I understand. You want hair, and of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice here or anything. There may be other off-label use for this. But if your MO is to attract a mate here, and baldness impedes, I get that. It might impede. I get that. Is it really a good trade-off? Well, you're going to attract a mate, now you can't perform sexually? I don't know. For some men that might be a thing, or there may be other uses for this thing. But again, the lowering cholesterol possibly with this medication, look at the side effects here. I don't know. And as somebody who is very sensitive, I assure you, I am extremely sensitive to side effects of medication. So I would have to really think before I would take this kind of medication with this. All right. Here we have, let's talk a little bit about OSHA. And we're going to share, because now it's a government website, so we're going to share. Give me a second here. Okay. Coming down. Share. And we're going to do this. Here we have the main page, the OSHA news releases for February 2024. Let me do this. And all right. So, okay. OSHA national news. All right. Here we have this. All right. What didn't we talk about? News release. All right. U.S. Department of Labor proposes nearly $2.5 million in penalties for an Alabama sawmill. Again, another sawmill situation. Finds willful disregard for safety that led to a fatality. A federal investigation into an August 2023 horrific fatal incident at a sawmill revealed, again, and all of this is everyone's innocent until proven guilty. These things get litigated, vacated, negotiated downward, and things of that nature. So these are the proposed penalties and not what the end result might be. All right. So, U.S. Department of Labor's OSHA, responding to reports by first responders. Ooh, you mean the company didn't report it? That's how I have to, right? Found that a 67-year-old sawmill supervisor had climbed on top of an auger to access a difficult-to-reach area to unclog a wood chipper. Because of multiple failures by the employer to protect him, the machine started while the employee was on top of the auger. The 20-year employee was caught in the machinery and fatally injured. And this is from OSHA Regional Administrator Kurt Petermeyer in Atlanta. The company, and he names the company, but I'm not naming the company, willful regard for the well-being of the employees leaves another family to grieve the loss of their loved one. This must stop. The worksite has become all too familiar to OSHA. The company and its owners have legal responsibility to follow federal safety laws and that are meant to prevent the exact hazard that it costs its employees a life. In response to the fatal incident, the company was cited, as well as its owners, with 22 willful violations, 1 repeat violation, 5 serious, totaling $2.5 million in proposed penalties. We're not going to go through all 22 violations here, but let's see what the major ones are. So what are we looking at? We're looking at lockout, tagout. We're looking at guarding, fall protection, employees operating a powered industrial truck, aka forklift, without a seatbelt, fire extinguishers, and electrical disconnect ensuring an electrical disconnect was located in direct line of sight from the equipment being locked out. All right. Prior to these citations, the company has been inspected 4 times in the past 5 years, including a fatality in 2020 that resulted in the agency citing the company with 4 willful and 10 serious violations. They were added to the Severe Violators Enforcement Program, a program for employers who endanger workers by committing willful, repeated, or failure to abate violations that could lead to fatalities or catastrophic injuries. Employers remain on the list until they can demonstrate certain criteria and safety standards within a 3-year time frame. And they could appeal this, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's see what we're looking at here. Again, these are 22 different things, so it's pretty... We're not going to go over all 22 of them. Reference over to OSHA here, their website for this. Citation 1, Item 1. This was a general duty clause violation here. The employer did not furnish employment and place of employment which were free from recognized hazards. The employer fails to ensure effective measures to prevent crush by and rejection hazards, as demonstrated on or about August 25th in the mill, where an employee operates a forklift to move product. Feasible means of abatement to address the hazard include but are not limited to ensuring seatbelts are utilized while operating forklifts. Pursuant to 29 CFR 1903.19, they have to have abatement. That was 12,676. Citation 1, Item 2. This was for portable fire extinguishers. Were not maintained and fully charged in operable condition, 10,140. Now, let me comment a little bit about this. Fire extinguishers, as far as I know, in every state that I've ever worked in, have to be inspected annually by or it could be every other year, by a state licensed fire extinguisher inspector. They have different names for these things, like technician, things of that nature, depending on your jurisdiction. But that's once a year. But on the back of that card, that's usually a card, or if it's a sticker, it's adjacent to that, or some type of tag, that has to be inspected every month, fire extinguishers. All right? Citation by a competent person, or no, along those lines. Citation 1, Item 3. I'm not sure how the regulation reads, but it's probably a competent person. Citation 1, Item 3. Type of violation: serious. Unused openings in boxes, cabinets, or fittings are not effectively closed. So let's say that you have a electrical box of some sort. It could be a control panel box, And there are the punch outs on there are punched out. That's of OSHA violation 10,140. Citation 1, item 4. Flexible cords were not connected to devices and fitting so that tension would not be transmitted to the joints. So basically, they're using cords improperly, electrical cords, 10,140. Citation 1, item 5, type of violation serious. As it applies to motors, motor circuits, and controllers, a disconnecting means for the controller was not located within sight of the controller location. The employer fails to ensure effective measures to prevent amputation hazards as demonstrated on or about August 23rd, 2023, in the sawmill at the chipper, where employees engage in maintenance activities. To abate this hazard, the employer must ensure that there is a direct site access for the electrical disconnect to the equipment being locked out. Right? So that's like a finer point of this thing that I'm sure a lot of people forget. $16,131. Citation 2, item 1A, lockout tagout violations that were willful. No procedures. They got the maximum, 161, or pretty close to the maximum, 161,323. Citation 2, item 1B, a willful, again, lockout tagout. No lockout tagout, $0. Citation 2, item 2A, willful. These are all willful. Procedures were not used for the control of potentially hazardous energy. And again, 161,323. Citation 2, item 2B was 0. No lockout tagout devices. Citation 2, item 3A. Again, in the lockout tagout, 161. And this goes on and on and on. Same ones over and over. They're getting a maximum here on a lot of these. Procedures, lockout tagout devices. Okay, scrolling on down. Okay, here we have citation 2, item 10, walking and working surface violation, willful, serious, 152, 1,000. Again, 4 foot or above. This is general industry. You have to have some kind of fall protection of some sort. They didn't have it. $152,100. Citation 2, item 12. Walking working surface, 161,323. Again, and these are repeat violations here for this. 4 foot, elevated platforms, walking working surfaces. This one's a guarding injury, a guarding situation, no guard. Equipment guard, 161,323. Citation 3, item 1, repeat. Powered industrial truck operator has to be competent to operate a powered industrial truck safely, as demonstrated by the successful completion of the training and evaluation. I was talking to a colleague today. You need the evaluation, just not the training. That was 20,280. So this is what it looks like, the whole spreadsheet. $2.4 million. 71, just shy of 2.5. Wow. Okay, here we have the next one. This is from the USDOL website. U.S. Department of Labor finds Oklahoma aeronautical parts manufacturer exposed workers to numerous safety and health hazards. And here we have 23 serious violations related to confined spaces, fall hazards, and blocked exit routes. So, do they give a link? Here is $284,000 in penalties. So, what do we got here? By the way, we're at 50 minutes into the program. You know what? I need to take a little break before we do this. I'm starting to lose it with my voice.
In a world where danger lurks in every corner, one man stands as a beacon of hope. Jimpoesl, a veteran safety expert with over 3 decades of experience, now bringing his knowledge to you with Safety Wars. Engaging, informative, and always relevant, that's Safety Wars. Join a safety revolution with Safety Wars, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos.
Okay, I am back. By the way, all music here is royalty free, and I have a license for it. No, somebody didn't like what I had out last night, and guess what? I assure you, everything is royalty free. I have a subscription and a license for everything here. There are not a lot of rules here on this network, but one of the main rules is this: do not use copyrighted music. Right? Make sure you have a license for everything, because that could get us into trouble here, right? So, citation 1, item 1, type of violation series. The employer did not insure, and this is for a company in Oklahoma. Employer did not insure this, again, walking working surface, 4 foot or above, general industry, $9,218. Citation 1, item 2. A hinge floor hole cover that meets the criteria in 1910.29, and a fixed guardrail system that leaves only one side exposed when the hole is not in use. The employer must ensure the cover is closed or a removable guardrail system is provided on the exposed sides. On or about August 23rd, at times prior thereto, the hatchways used to access a pit did not have a guardrail system or other fall protection that complied with A to C. So what kind of company was this again? This was a aeronautical parts manufacturer. Okay, great. Again, with that walking and working surface. Okay, citation 1, item 3. Exit routes were not kept free and unobstructed, $9,218. Citation 1, item 4. A clear space of not less than 3 feet on all sides was not kept free from storage or combustible construction, $11,524. Citation 1, item 5. Here we have employees were not knowledgeable in proper first aid procedures appropriate to the dipping or coating hazards from which they were exposed. Wow. First aid issue, $11,524, right? Citation 1, item 6. Employees working with liquids that could burn, irritate, or otherwise harm their skin were not provided with appropriate first aid supplies. Again, let me comment on this, and I don't think I'm going to get to the end here. If you are, right, OSHA requires a lot of stuff that often gets overlooked. And companies go out there, they go to their online supplier or whatever, and they say, well, we are interested in a first aid kit. And they go, and there are services out there that come by once a month and refill first aid kits. Well, first aid kits have to be inspected weekly, number 1. Number 2 is that what is in a standard ANSI issue first aid kit may not be everything that you need. And this is a perfect case of this, where, okay, it's great. We have a first aid kit. This is what it looks like to me. But they did not have some of the equipment that you might need in a first aid kit. Like a tourniquet might be one. And this thing, it sounds to me like there were barrier creams, maybe something to neutralize the acid burns that they were allegedly potentially exposed to, things of that nature. So just because you have a first aid kit, don't think that you have everything that you need in it, right? There's a lot of stuff that you may need. What I would advise is that if you have a EMT on site, a volunteer EMT or whatever your situation may be, that you consult with them, bring them on. Hey, you're an EMT, you're a firefighter, you're whoever, right? Hey, what do you think we might need here? as far as first aid supplies, or maybe tap someone else, like a nurse. You may know an RN. You may know a emergency medical doctor. You may know many different resources out there. Try to find out what you need with this. And again, you're increasing capacity, and therefore you are increasing safety. That is what I have essentially for tonight. Let's see how much longer I have here on the live stream. So we're going to go moving on over to our outro. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope to be here tomorrow night. If not, I'm going to try to get out a program on YouTube or one of the other platforms over the weekend. And for Safety Wars, this is Jim Poesl.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.